Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Let's get started. And today we are diving deep into the source material you've shared with us specifically, excerpts from the memoir Matriarch by Tina Knowles. Our mission here is to journey through the key events and insights presented, following the chronological flow of the book, and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge and understanding this story offers.
Absolutely. Think of this as tracing an incredible path from a childhood rooted in Galveston through the complexities of family and motherhood, and ultimately to becoming this powerful force in fashion and music. It's a story built on resilience, navigating, unexpected turns, and the enduring strength of connection.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting at the very beginning, in Galveston, Texas. The source is open with these really evocative early childhood memories, setting the scene with the atmosphere, introducing her siblings, Flo, Butch, Larry, and Skip, and their parents, Loomis and Agnes.
Yes, the narrative immediately immerses you in that world. You get details like pretending to ice skate on the floor in footy pajamas, or the dynamic with her father, Loomis, this handsome man who put up this gruff front that the children found so funny, trying to hug him.
Right.
And then her mother, Agnes, kind of the heart of the family, sharing stories under the big pecan tree.
And right away, the memoir drops this surprising detail about the family name itself. Beyoncé, Boyance, Beyoncé used interchangeably. It's highlighted as a way names can hold multitudes.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how that linguistic variation is immediately connected to a much deeper historical thread. The source touches on the family's history, mentioning figures like Rosalie and Celestine, and chillingly, the traumatic public auction in 1853, where 3 generations of the family were sold separately.
Wow.
The author explicitly states feeling that fear and rage echoing in her DNA, acknowledging the concept of this trauma being passed down.
That adds such a weighty layer right at the start. And it contrasts so sharply with the descriptions of her childhood energy, like running faster than the boys,
Yeah.
wanting to jump the porch steps, that spark of mischief, like lighting the neighbor's boots on fire just for the colors.
It really speaks to this vibrant, perhaps even daredevil spirit that was present from the beginning. But alongside that, there was the grounding influence of faith and community. Tithing at church is mentioned, and her mother's powerful explanation, God provides for us because we give back, emphasizing the need for God to stretch that dollar.
And the pure joy of those yard parties, full of kids, Skip with his famously corny jokes, Larry the engineer kid explaining the angles of table tennis. But even those moments of community ran up against the harsh reality of segregation.
Exactly. Those seemingly idyllic beach trips with teeny mama making enough sandwiches for everyone, the algebra of motherhood, as the source puts it, were immediately limited by segregated beach access, just a tiny strip of 3 blocks. The real beach near Pleasure Pier was off limits. The source takes a moment to provide context, reminding us of Galveston's history as a port city, deeply involved in the cotton trade and, tragically, slave trafficking, which underpinned that later segregation.
Leaving Galveston for a time, the family moved to Weeks Island, which sounds like a completely different, almost foreboding place, described with darkness, looming nature, Spanish moss hanging like gnarled fingers.
Yeah, the atmosphere there was definitely a stark contrast to the coastal city. It was her mother's childhood home, and returning brought a clear tension for Agnes. A coping mechanism for the children emerged from this. The younger sister found a strange bravery in thinking someone else was even more scared than she was.
Her father's work in the salt mine is another vivid detail from this period, working for $468 a year, the dangerous job of dynamiting, and the terrifying cave-in.
Right. The source highlights the detail of the specific knocking off early signal, and how her uncles, including Uncle Alec, waited and then jumped the fence to dig him out. This harrowing event connected directly to a pivotal moment related to union organizing. The family received a threatening note saying, "Stop talking." Despite the clear danger, Loomis and his brothers decided to sign up for the union anyway, understanding the desperate situation they were in.
And that led to needing help.
It did. It forced Agnes to turn to Slack, her ex-husband, a man she apparently could not stand. The source paints a picture of them showing up at Slack's door, nowhere else to go.
Returning to Galveston meant returning to school at Holy Rosary under the famously strict Sister Fidelis. The descriptions are intense, boot camp, drill sergeant demanding silence.
Yeah, very strict.
The story of running home on a first day, telling her mother, "Mom, I don't like this," and her mother's initial reaction being overridden by the immense power the nuns of the church held over her is telling.
It really is. And it's noted that her father quietly disapproved of the nuns.
This dynamic with the nuns leads to one of the most emotionally charged anecdotes in the memoir, the story of the white dress made for crowning the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Know that part, yeah.
The joy she felt making it with her mother, feeling cherished and lovable, only for Sister Fidelis to give the dress to Linda, who had lost her mother, calling Tenny selfish and saying she had a bad spirit.
And her mother's sad, perhaps resigned reaction, well, Tenny, you do have all those beautiful dresses, and you have your mom. It just speaks volumes about that moment's impact, doesn't it?
Absolutely. As she moved into her teenage years, that protective instinct emerged strongly, particularly towards her cousin Johnny. The source describes him as obviously gay by 3, full of confidence thanks to his mother Selena, but vulnerable in Galveston.
Right.
She recounts fighting back fiercely against boys who called him names, giving it back magnified.
Yeah.
And interestingly, her own reaction to being called Lucy. She just laughed it off.
That protective fire was definitely a defining trait. The narrative then shifts to a significant historical event in Galveston, the sit-ins of September 1968. The sources highlight the bravery of Central High students, including her sister Flo and Kelton. Their actions at Woolworth's, facing racial slurs, businesses shutting down, and their persistence in filling other lunch counters. The local newspaper's response is noted, dismissing them as outside agitators when they were local youth deeply committed to the cause.
And it worked, right?
It did. It's a powerful detail that Galveston became the first southern city to desegregate lunch counters after weeks of their consistent effort.
A truly pivotal moment.
Sure.
Speaking of defiance, there's the story of Skip's expulsion for hitting a nun and calling her a bitch,
Whoa.
leading to applause from the other students. Her parents' reaction, believing he had a devil in him and needed a priest, is also recounted.
Quite the family drama.
And in the midst of all this, her personal shift wanting to be called Tina, Skip's playful refusal, and turning to Larry's practical engineer mind for help with school forms and navigating the official name change.
Transitioning to Booker T. Washington High brought its own challenges, including a confrontation with Mary Elizabeth, hilariously facilitated by someone called Little Don King.
Little Don King. Seriously.
Apparently. This led to agreeing to a fight after school at Miss Sims's corner store, painting a picture of the social dynamics she had to navigate.
A more lighthearted but telling detail is the shared life with Johnny and his incredible creative fashion talent, even at 15, creating patchwork, satin flare pants, maxi coats.
He sounds amazing.
And the anecdote about her father's birthday, his performative gruffness about birthday cards, and how she, despite being sensitive about his reaction, became part of that family act.
These personal touches really flesh out the story. Her first trip out of Galveston to visit Butch, who was in the Air Force in San Antonio, is a significant memory. Staying in a motel with a dirty pool that seems like the height of luxury, it sparked a powerful dream for her at just 11 years old.
What was the dream?
A dream of giving her family a tour of the life she built for herself.
Wow, even then. That dream was partly fueled by the forced integration of schools in 1968 and the closing of Central High, which the source calls as monumental as the 1900 storm.
Yeah, a huge upheaval. Being forced to attend Ball High, feeling like a second-class citizen, grieving the loss of the dream of being a Bearcat majorette. The sources mention her involvement in efforts to create a Black student union with Michael Merritt and a Black Studies program, alongside a growing fascination with the Black Panthers, particularly their free breakfast program and figures like Erica.
This period also marked personal struggles for her at age 14, including recurring visits to John Seeley Hospital, described as a charity teaching hospital where she felt like a guinea pig.
She felt a growing distance from her mother during this time, seeing her as weak for not standing up to the nuns, which fueled a fierce determination to leave Galveston and her mother behind in 3 years.
Her first job is another vivid detail, working at the Sierra Marine World gift shop, riding her bike there, the constant smell of chlorine, even the oddity of alligator wrestling happening nearby.
Right. And then discovering the Galveston nightlife, the underground culture, hanging out at the Session, a BYOB club where she met the Chi-Lites, and discovering the Con Tiki, famous for its surprising penis silhouettes.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's what the source is. Apparently, that's where Johnny found his community, and she attended her first drag show. Johnny quickly became the go-to costume maker for the drag queens, eventually moving into a duplex above his mother, Selena.
The decision to leave Galveston after graduation was firm. As the source puts it, she didn't know where I was going, but now Johnny had his people, I needed to find mine.
And this led to a striking confrontation with the same cop who had previously beaten Skip. He recognized her name, hurled insults like black bitches,
Oh my God.
and her defiant response, "You ain't gonna do shit." Running away from that encounter, she had the stark realization of how sheltered she'd been compared to the everyday realities faced by others.
Her move to California to San Diego is recounted saving money by working as a seamstress with Selena. Her mother's updated advice for her, now that she was cute, was about finding security in a man.
Interesting shift.
And her mother's fear about her dream of being a singer is noted, don't want you to be disappointed, reflecting a desire to protect her from potential heartbreak, which Tina saw as a lack of trust.
Yeah, that generational difference in perspective. Skip's future also shifted dramatically around this time when he had to marry his pregnant girlfriend and stay in Galveston, a situation that caused her parents to pry.
Arriving in San Diego, she was met by Ronnie and Knapp at the home of Linda, Selena's oldest daughter. Linda described as beautiful but also smart, with clear insights into dealing with men.
The experience of making dinner for Linda, seeing it as what grown folks did, watching the sunset and sending mental postcards back home marked a new independence. Linda's directness is highlighted, telling her she needed to get a job, unemployment in my own home, calling her roommate, which helped her see the opportunities she had.
Her mother's calls continued, filled with what the source calls full Agnes, guilt trips, and fear for their safety. A significant call is recounted where her mother was crying, and Tina apologized, saying, "I'm just an idiot." She realized in that moment that her anger wasn't about her mother being controlling, but about her mother not trusting her to make her own way.
That makes sense. A pattern of going where she was needed began to emerge. She returned to Galveston due to her mother's declining health. Seeing how much her able woman of a mother had changed after 14 months away, this is during the holidays, marking a shift in her life.
Right. She recounts singing in a Galveston bar with Carlos's band, feeling nervous without the Viltones she was used to performing with, and encountering Mrs. Williams, who spread gossip about her singing in a bar while her parents are doing poorly.
Oh, the judgment.
And then, in a dramatic turn, she was arrested by that same cop who'd beaten Skip. His anger was palpable.
No way. Again.
Yes. He arrested her for minor things like no shoes, speeding, and no helmet, driving her down the seawall to Menard Park, a black park, where kids were gathered, seemingly to humiliate her.
That's awful.
The jail experience is vividly described, meeting women with dark eyeliner, playing spades, talking about makeup, and getting a tip to spend the night to lower the fine.
Whole little world in there.
Her brother Butch arrived with kids from the beach, and then B.A. Mills, her brother-in-law's father, made one phone call that immediately ended the harassment. Her cousin Naomi made the mugshot disappear.
Wow. Connections.
Exactly. The source reflects on the power of that connection, asking, what if my brother-in-law's father wasn't a rich man's chauffeur? Highlighting the systemic nature of the injustice and who has access to power.
It's a stark reminder of how connections mattered. Right after that harrowing experience, there was a brush with death, a near drowning at the pier with Skip, dangerous undercurrents pulling her down. Oh my goodness.
She described staying calm and eventually being spit out by the water.
Incredible.
And in that intense moment, immediately after that near-death experience, she met Matthew Knowles.
Talk about timing.
Right. She recounts his voice behind her at the pier, her sassy response, "Don't nobody care about your records." His asking if she was Rusty's girlfriend. Her quick denial, "I am a girl from Galveston." His persistence, giving his elevator pitch as a Xerox salesman, asking where she worked, visa, and promising to visit.
Persistent guy. Life took another turn when both her parents were hospitalized simultaneously. Her mother begged her to move back, leading her to give notice at Visa, pack up, stay at her friend Pat's, and sell everything.
Then, a traumatic incident occurred with a gangster neighbor at Pat's apartment, causing her and Pat to flee quickly.
Jeez.
This made her realize she had to move back sooner than planned because her family needed her. And in that moment, amid the chaos, she had this sudden realization. She really liked this guy.
The Matthew realization. They dated long distance for a year, him in Houston, her in Galveston. The sources describe falling in love, the urgency or humor of their conversations, their endless energy, becoming the couple that other people built their nights around.
Sounds intense, but financial concerns were present from the start, particularly with Matthew's debt.
Yeah.
Despite his seemingly fancy appearance with an oxblood leather briefcase with alligator trim and a past due notice from Sears Roebuck.
Oh, the briefcase story, yeah. She recounts telling him she couldn't marry him and his promise to be out of debt in 6 months and buy a house.
Their elopement in Las Vegas is recounted, including the detail of missing their initial flight. Tragically, as they were leaving, they received news that her father had suffered another heart attack. Matthew raced her to the hospital. Her initial impulse was to go it alone, having been married less than 24 hours. But she tells Matthew to see his own parents first, as his godfather, Reverend Walker, had also just died.
Wow, just compounding grief. The final days of her mother's life are described with poignant detail. Moving her mother home from the nursing home, the doctor delivering the incredibly difficult news. Every breath your mother's taking is like her running up 10 flights of stairs.
Oh, heartbreaking.
Her mother begging God for more time. Tina stayed constantly by her side. Matthew stayed with her father, and her mother ultimately died holding Matthew's hand while Tina held her foot.
Such a powerful image. Transitioning now into Act 2. A mother. This part of the story picks up with life back in Houston, moving to the 3rd Ward and planting roots there, despite having other options.
This era brings new joys and significant challenges. Matthew's infidelity is addressed, described as an ongoing struggle. The source mentions suspicions being present, but initially washed away by the belief that their love was strong enough, viewing themselves as us against the world.
She also cared for her father after her mother's death, as he was diagnosed with lung cancer. His fragility showing up unannounced, her own tension from the constant caregiving role, missing trips, and Matthew's unwavering support, never complaining.
That's significant. Her father's comment, "brought yourself here," is noted, and her regret that she hadn't gone to him earlier.
The early days of motherhood with Beyoncé, who was nearly 3, are described beautifully. The discovery of it, experiencing everyday things anew through her daughter's eyes, simple walks, nature, roses, trips to the zoo, ducks, the smell of linen.
Sweet. Singing to her just as her own mother had sung to her, mentioning the Isley brothers specifically.
Her second pregnancy is discussed expecting a boy they planned to name Matthew Knowles. Her friend Cheryl giving her a French baby names book, and her discovery of the name Solange, loving how musical it sounded.
Solange's birth is recounted being overdue, trying different remedies. Solange ultimately being born on a Tuesday with its own mind. Matthew returning home to an empty house, finding them at her friend Marlene's, and her initial refusal to speak to him. Beyoncé's reaction to becoming a big sister is noted, and a specific detail about the family dog, Killer, and not meeting it with the trainer beforehand is included.
This period also led to a turning point in the marriage, resulting in an ultimatum, intensive marriage counseling, and only returning home after.
Right, a significant step. The source describes the feeling of a fresh start after this, a period of doting on the girls, singing to them, specifically reunited, and "you're all I need to get by." An interesting contrast is drawn early on. Solange's love for books versus Beyoncé's initial lack of interest in reading.
A significant challenge she focused on was the comparison between Solange and Beyoncé, particularly exacerbated by a teacher. Her anxiety about them being pitted against each other, missing each other's unique gifts, is palpable.
Yeah, that must have been tough. Her consistent message to each girl is highlighted. This is just the start of great things for you.
October 1986 marked a major entrepreneurial step, opening Headliner's hair salon. She describes the hands-on marketing, putting flyers on cars, and the stylist's initial dislike of her $9.95 deal.
I bet they weren't thrilled. She talks about marrying the science of hair care with her mother's ritual using grease, olive oil, butter, mayonnaise, egg whites.
Wow, all of that.
And always emphasizing get the root. She took pride in proving experts wrong about combining perms and color.
Her niece Ebony lived with them for 3 years after her mother Denise's marriage ended, and Tina took on the responsibility of caring for her. The house felt like the Galveston home she grew up in, with a yard perfect for parties.
A full house again. She notes Beyoncé's shyness and how Ebony would fill in the blanks about their school day.
An important theme reinforced during this time was the value of their own people and chosen family. She highlights the connection between Johnny and Peanut, describing them as married in every way but the paper.
Which makes the later details about Peanut facing legal challenges due to the lack of rights for gay partners even more poignant.
Definitely. Beyoncé's persistent shyness is detailed further, particularly after Ebony moved out. The source mentions her idolizing the popular sisters, referred to as Heckle and Jekyll.
Heckle and Jekyll.
Yep, who actually bullied her. An example is Beyoncé not wearing a coat she loved because they said she looked stupid dancing in it.
Poor kid. This leads to a pivotal moment. The first talent show at Miss Darlett's dance class. Beyoncé was crying, but Tina signed her up anyway.
Tough love.
Kind of. As one of only 2 black girls, she learned the pivot turn just minutes before going on stage, missed her cue, got scared, but then found her rhythm and performed.
And Matthew's reaction.
Apparently, gonna get discovered.
Yeah.
Tina's worry about losing her daughter to her gift and her promise not to hold her too tight shows her internal conflict.
The narrative takes a sad turn with the tragic story of Peanut's illness and death from AIDS-related dementia and cancer.
Yeah, this part is really tough. His erratic behavior, hospitalization, Selena finding out. Tina recounts taking on her badass Tenny B role, cursing at doctors to make him laugh during his illness.
Trying to keep his spirits up.
Exactly. His short recovery, moving to a long-term care facility. She addresses the hurtful rumors that were spread, specifically her sister Flo's comment, "That guy has AIDS." Tina's angry reaction and her subsequent act of checking the facts, learning that men can indeed get breast cancer.
Good for her for checking.
She describes staying with him worrying about rumors, her telling him to fight. The devastation of his death is followed immediately by the conflict with his aunt taking the car and other belongings, starkly highlighting the legal issues faced by Johnny as a gay partner with no recognized rights.
Just awful. Amidst this difficult time, Kelly Rowland joined the family. The source describes meeting Kelly and her single mother, Doris, who became a close friend and part of their lives.
Yeah, Kelly started spending a lot of time at the Parkwood house, which Tina notes didn't look like the TV families of the time. Sunday lunches at Luby's, Tina cooking soul food, gumbo, spaghetti.
Sounds like a haven.
Yeah, the house was a central hangout, making people feel welcome.
This was the genesis of Girls' Time. Tina recounts driving Kelly home after performances, talking about the shows. Matthew's significant investment and rigorous training are mentioned, described as tough but never cruel.
Right. The source counters the perception of favoritism by noting that Matthew was hardest on Beyoncé, especially you, Beyoncé, because he saw a leader in her. She recalls Matthew making them run along the bayou and Beyoncé's unwavering commitment, answering no when asked if it was too much.
Dedication from the start. Other details from this period include the Houston Chronicle Christmas feature in 1990, with Johnny getting ornaments and making dresses overnight for it.
Johnny again, the creative force.
And the powerful moment of seeing Janet Jackson in concert, Beyoncé crying and declaring, "I'm going to do that someday," which Tina met not with fear, but with support. Yes, you will. If you want it, you will have it.
Such a contrast to how her own parents reacted to her dreams.
Exactly. Solange's development is also noted. Tina was conscious of ensuring she wasn't overshadowed, celebrating their differences, and how Solange's unique gifts emerged more fully later.
A significant shift in 1992 involved moving from Windsor Village Methodist to a downtown church, which had issued a call for 10 families, including the Knowleses, to help occupy it. Sunday meals at the church became a ritual. Tina recounts volunteering the girls to serve food, initially prompting complaints that it wasn't fair, but how they learned a deep lesson in service by seeing and treating homeless families with dignity.
That's a powerful lesson. The Star Search audition story in November 1992 is a well-known part of their history, but the memoir adds details. Arne Frager secured the spot. Matthew wanted them to perform a ballad, Sunshine, over a hip-hop song with rap.
Oh, interesting conflict.
But he was overruled, leading to the eventual loss.
Ouch. Kelly permanently living with them is discussed, becoming like their daughter. Tina made it clear she was Aunt Tina and wasn't replacing Doris, though Kelly eventually called Matthew Dad.
A sweet detail is Beyoncé's negotiation about sharing clothes. I'll give them to her.
Huh. Practical. Managerial disagreements arose, particularly with Daryl Simmons, who called them too square and advised them to get with the music business by prioritizing money flow, which contrasted with the parents' vision for the group.
Solange faced her own challenges at school, specifically with a teacher who seemed determined not to accept her in the advanced class. The memoir details subtle ways this teacher showed it, like changing the order for presentations when it was Solange's turn to present on Oprah Winfrey.
That's frustrating. Tina speaks up about this, and the teacher acts like Tina is exaggerating or seeing things that aren't there.
A major breaking point in the marriage is recounted, centered around Matthew's magazine for the salon. It was printed on thin paper with blurry images, a loss of detail that bothered Tina, and it was funded on credit.
Not good. This was the moment Tina cried for the first time about the state of her marriage, realizing how it would directly impact her daughters.
The separation process followed. Tina describes finding an office near House of Darion, decorating it beautifully but not functionally.
Beyoncé's sadness about this is mentioned. I did not like being there. So small. And Wanda telling Tina that Beyoncé was crying.
Despite the separation, Christmas traditions continued, like brunch at the hotel and the chocolate-covered strawberries in a Ziploc bag for the movies.
Trying to keep some normalcy.
There are lighthearted moments, like Matthew calling them country, while they teased him for being bougie. The anecdote of the girls laughing uncontrollably at Mrs. Dick's name provides a touch of shared family silliness.
Yeah. Kids find the funniest things hilarious. Matthew's role in their education is consistently highlighted, teaching them about the entertainment industry, asking questions like, what's the 2 ways you make money? And his critique, always ending with, especially you, Beyoncé, underscored his focus on her potential leadership.
The excitement of hearing their song No, No, No on the radio for the first time is a vivid memory. Calling Tina headliners from the car and Tina sharing the news with everyone in the salon must have been amazing.
Oh, absolutely. The production of Destiny's Child's first video, No, 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 Part 2, is detailed. Beyoncé's early clarity of vision is noted finding director Darren Grant, learning from choreographer Frank Gatson Jr., and a specific anecdote about Tina adding platinum streaks to Beyoncé's hair on set, not bringing enough supplies, leading to the realization by Chris and Eric that Tina was her mother after they had initially given her the cold shoulder because a friend was supposedly doing the hair.
Oops. Life on the road is described with phrases like, Destiny's Child has warned you. Tina and Cheryl, Latavia's mom, filled multiple roles from hairstylist to luggage carrier, navigating the challenges of places like Holiday Inn.
The grind. Beyoncé's professionalism at a young age is evident, as is her display of love when someone treated Tina poorly backstage, saying, but I love you.
Sweet. The continuous, often tireless work involved in creating costumes is emphasized. Helping Miss Enid finish sewing, working late nights before flights, having to hem clothes immediately after arriving in a new city.
It's just constant work. And the industry's initial resistance to their image is a clear theme, not wanting them to achieve the same pop success as white groups because they were black, wanting them to tone things down, to cross over.
Right. Tina's designs were dismissed as pageanty and compared negatively to the Supremes. Big hair, shiny sequins, highlighting the struggle to maintain their authentic image against industry pressure.
Moving into the later events and the transition to Act 3, the narrative returns to Johnny's story. His decline and hospitalization with AIDS-related dementia are recounted. Tina's role as his protector during this difficult time is clear. His death and the subsequent legal property issues faced by his partner Peanut, due to the lack of recognized rights for gay couples, are poignant reminders of the societal context.
The process of recording the first album in late 1998 and spring 1999 included finding the 4th member. Latavia introduced Michelle Williams.
Right. Tina describes an immediate instinct that Michelle was God-sent, despite Matthew's initial hesitation. Michelle's audition with the song Walk With Me resonated deeply with Tina, who loved what the song represented, a journey through your trials.
Solange's early music aspirations are discussed. Tina recounts telling her to be a backup dancer first to see how hard the industry truly is, expecting her to quit.
Did she quit?
Nope. Solange surprised her, arranging a song with Pharrell called Crush, and insisting on writing and getting credit for her debut album, Solo Star, proving early on that she was ahead of her time.
Wow. Costume work continued to be a major part of Tina's life, highlighted by the Titanic video in 1999, working with Hemi and Ty Hunter. Beyoncé wanted the performers to look like people who went down with the ship, while Tina wanted them to look beautiful.
Creative differences.
Leading to the creation of fur bikinis, a Raquel Welch tribute, and camo flaunt outfits. The sheer exhaustion of working 2 weeks straight on these is mentioned.
The merging of the Carter and Knowles families is described warmly. Jay-Z's family attending a party, Beyoncé pulling back a bit at first.
Understandable.
But the families quickly joining and becoming very close, characterized by laughter, storytelling, drinking, dancing.
Sounds like a good time. Jay's sisters are mentioned as dance partners, his mother Gloria sending scripture, and Miss Hattie White's wisdom about making lemonade. Jay-Z's support is highlighted, with Tina referring to him as her best son-in-law.
A moment of standing up to industry critics is recounted after the MTV Video Music Awards. Tina calls them a bunch of haters, and Beyoncé joins in with the same fire, showing that shared spirit of resilience.
Like mother, like daughter. Beyoncé's later joke about the label saying her album had no hits when it ended up having 5 also speaks to this dynamic.
Solange's creative process in fall 2003 is described as a disappearing act to cultivate new creative communities, reflecting that her impulses weren't being satisfied by her life at the time.
Interesting. A traumatic event occurred in fall 2003. Solange was with Daniel at a Rockets game. Tina received a phone call from a little girl in England. followed by Solange screaming, "They shot her! They shot her!" on the phone.
Oh my God. Who was shot?
The source actually doesn't specify who, just Solange's reaction. The aftermath was difficult. Solange disappeared, Matthew and Angie tried to reach her, Matthew had a difficult call with her, and Solange hung up, leading to Tina's anger at Angie.
Stressful.
Solange was eventually found at a friend's house where she had pawned her jewelry, including the Solo Star bracelet, for $3,000.
Why?
The source notes she did this because she took Tina's words about making her own money to heart.
Wow. This led to Solange's impulsive decision to marry Daniel today on a Wednesday.
Just like that.
Just like that. Tina's reaction is to ask for 3 days to arrange a wedding so Solange could have memories.
Okay, 3 days.
The memoir describes the race to plan it, Sony stepping up to help, John Travolta offering his private resort in the Bahamas, and Dawn Aner's protectiveness.
Incredible mobilization. Life after separating from Matthew in early 2011 is described, including what the source calls the harassment from him at a hotel during a tour, referring to him as a torturer.
Strong words.
This led to a breaking point where Tina finally exploded and told him she hated him. She recounts having to flee the Bloomberg Tower to avoid reporters and hide in Houston.
Despite the separation, a bond remained.
Yeah.
They would meet in Houston and go to League City where they kept their boats, the Miss Tina speedboat and Daniel Jules' yacht.
Huh. Tina notes that the bond felt stronger because they were sneaking.
The decision to divorce was made on a Monday, a feeling that she needed to upend her life to do the necessary personal work.
The divorce was finalized in August 2011 in Matthew's office. The source describes their civility during the process, listing assets, selling the house of Darion and Miss Tina brands, which amounted to $66 million, divided equally.
Wow.
She expresses pride in having built up so much to divvy up. There was a feeling of her heart still being there, like a little bird waiting.
Transitioning now to Act 3. A woman. This section begins with Tina's life after the divorce in November 2011, in her NYC apartment, waiting to feel better, and her method of jolting herself back into focus when she felt stuck.
The story of Beyoncé's first pregnancy is shared, including styling her for the VMAs and hiding the bump, the famous onstage announcement, and the hurtful, hateful rumors fueled by the media about her faking the pregnancy based on how her dress folded.
The scrutiny. The birth of Blue Ivy is recounted, as is Matthew's visit to meet his granddaughter for the first time.
How did that go?
Tina advocated for this visit despite the distance that had grown between Beyoncé and her father. Matthew had a cold and couldn't hold the baby. His sadness is noted, and his plea to stay at Tina's apartment, "I would do anything to have my family back."
Powerful moment. Tina's personal journey post-divorce includes admitting she hoped to find love again, initially thinking she needed a partner, and couldn't imagine finding one at 58.
Understandable feeling.
Her daughters played a key role, calling her a bad bitch and reminding her of everything she had already accomplished and had going on.
An important insight gained in therapy, specifically EMDR, is shared. She realized that her mother hadn't protected her from the nuns, which had implicitly taught her that she wasn't worthy and that she should always put others first.
Connecting the dots. She connects this back to the difficult call from California and realizing how angry she had been at her mother for not trusting her, reinforcing her own desire to be different in her parenting. I want them to know I trust them.
Dating experiences after the divorce are mentioned: a good doctor who wouldn't dance, and her initial worry about dating older men.
Jay-Z's advice is noted, suggesting she date someone younger because old men can't keep up with you.
A seemingly small but significant moment is reconnecting with her friend Monica, and Monica's insistence that Tina pick her up from the airport, despite Tina thinking it was a waste of time. Monica emphasizing that it was important to me highlights the value of that specific connection.
It's often those small things, isn't it? The story of meeting Richard Lawson is beautifully detailed. Monica spotting him at brunch, Tina recognizing him, and him recognizing her from 30 years prior.
Amazing.
His introduction actor mentioning his kids Bianca and Ricky, and a funny coincidence that Bianca was dating her brother Butch's best friend's son.
Small world.
Exchanging numbers, his calling the next day, and their magical first date. Roses, dinner, walking for hours, her wishing he'd kissed her, feeling like Cinderella. It's noted that Matthew remarrying the week before her friend's wedding was a blow to her ego despite everything.
Oof, yeah. Richard proposing on a boat in their marriage in April 2015 marked a joyful new chapter.
A poignant moment is shared about a generational photo with Selena and Blue Ivy. She noticed how Selena and Blue held their hands and pressed their lips in the same way her mother did in old photos, prompting Tina to run and jump into the photo to bridge those generations.
Love that. Solange's move to Louisiana in June 2016 to write A Seat at the Table is discussed, described as returning to her roots near New Iberia, where her father was born, a conscious act of reclaiming ancestry.
The powerful experience of Solange's installation at the Guggenheim in October 2017 is a highlight. Solange insisting on bringing her sculptures, telling them to tear the goddamn walls down if necessary.
Wow, bold.
The beauty of the installation, the palpable Black pride in the audience, the museum crowd being different than usual, and the New York Times calling the work sublime and a symbolic retort to histories of exclusion.
Beyoncé's 40th birthday party in Italy in September 2021 on a super yacht is described as incredibly lavish, a cave restaurant, a beach dinner, dining and dancing until 5 a.m.
Sounds unbelievable.
The magic of witnessing Jay's effort to make Beyoncé feel special, and Beyoncé's reaction feeling valuable, happy, surprised, and seen.
A quiet moment the next day on the deck in Capri with her daughters and Michelle, and a helicopter appearing in the distance, adds a cinematic detail.
Preparation for the Renaissance World Tour, starting in spring 2023, is highlighted. Tina jokes about telling Matthew they needed tickets.
The complex planning is called a masterclass. Beyoncé's demanding schedule is described in fighter mode, wearing an oversized hoodie and sweats, back-to-back meetings on stage covering lighting, choreography, costuming, every single detail.
Intense focus.
It's noted that Beyoncé was meticulous about every detail, but also tightened the budget for the sake of the fans.
Blue Ivy's performance on the tour is specifically mentioned, described as transforming Black girl pride into the extraordinary courage. Tina expressing her desire for Blue to hold pride in that moment.
Rumi and Sir turning 6 on tour is mentioned, Sir's preference for books and cars over entertainment.
Interesting contrast.
And Rumi being ready for the stage, knowing all the choreography and words. Tina's reflection saying, those little Carter girls, echoes her earlier thoughts about those little nose girls.
Kelly Rowland's return to acting is covered her love for it, how the camera loves her, filming Tyler Perry's Mea Culpa, which became #1 streamed on Netflix.
Good for her. Tina's pep talk to Kelly is shared, telling her she's just scratching the surface and suggesting she needs to create her own opportunities, like getting the script and finding the backing.
Tina's own health scare in late 2023 is shared finding a lump, the diagnosis of invasive lobular carcinoma.
Oh no.
Matthew flying to be with her. Her insistence on specific, more advanced tests like mama print and the Signatera blood test, even pushing back against initial suggestions from doctors and being willing to pay for them. The source notes her frustration with doctors having different approaches.
Advocating for herself, pre-op preparation in Houston in late July 2024 is described the support from family and friends. The difficulty of telling her sister Flo in person because their brother Butch had died in February at 77.
So sad.
And the realization that she and Flo were all that was left from their Galveston home and had only grown close later in life. Going to an R&B club with girlfriends to fortify herself before the surgery is a specific detail.
Time spent in the Hamptons before the surgery is also recounted, a week and a half, with daughters and grandchildren, everyone renting places nearby.
Kelly, Solange, Angie, and Michelle coming to be with her, hugging on her, being makeup-free, playing with the grandkids. Her grandson Jula's visiting, now modeling, and with his own streetwear brand. Tina drawing strength from him, seeing her father in him, beautiful eyes, that same cleft.
The memoir ends with Tina in her new home in Malibu in fall 2024. No furniture yet, sitting on the balcony towel, recording the beginnings of her book, appreciating the ocean, describing the ferocious waves, and feeling closest to Galveston during rough seas.
Bringing it full circle.
She reflects on going to the pier during storms with Johnny, despite her mother's warning that the water will take you flying.
Yeah.
At 70, she feels she is still that girl at heart, her heart still loving the swoop and glide.
It's truly an incredible arc, isn't it? From those defined and segregated spaces of Galveston to navigating global stages and finding profound personal resilience in her later life. The sources weave together this rich tapestry of experiences, the deep roots of family, the inherent strength, particularly of the women in her life. The vital importance of chosen connections like Johnny and Peanut, the continuous struggle and importance of defining your own self-worth against external pressures, and the lifelong journey of learning and growth.
You shared these sources with us, and we hope this deep dive has offered you some new perspectives and aha moments, adding layers to your understanding of the experiences that shape a life and make someone who they are.
Consider all the moments throughout this narrative where external forces, whether it was segregation, gossip, industry resistance, or even the well-meaning fear of loved ones, tried to define worth or limit potential. What does this story, in its entirety, suggest to you about the enduring power of internal definition and the determined pursuit of building the life you dream of?
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge. Spread the word.